Good morning, guys. Hope everyone is staying safe. And Welcome to this webinar session. And I'm Anjana Ratnayaka. During this session, we're going to discuss about how to manage our vendors in a better way, in a productive way in Sage 300 application or whatever the Sage application you have. First of all, let's move to the content and these things we're going to discuss during our webinar session today. First of all, we're going to see how we can do our vendor creation, and we'll known as the vendor master creation. And then we're going to discuss how we can book invoices for our vendors, as well as how we can settle those outstanding invoices. And then we're going to track these transactions through our payable reports. And then we are trying to process some recurring payables. So we are trying to automate the recurring payables. And finally, we are trying to track all these activities through an overview in Sage application. Okay, then let's move to our vendor registration. This vendor creation, or we can say vendor registration, in this flow, there are certain areas where you requires to feed the system before you start your vendor master creations. These are as follows. First one is the vendor groups, and then you'll have to set up the vendor ID, first of all, the vendor name, and taxing informations, and your default bank codes. These informations are pretty much mandatory, and without feeding them into the system, you cannot start your vendor creation. So basically, this vendor ID and vendor name are always coming in the vendor master window. So you can leave that is. But apart from these two things, vendor groups, taxing informations, bank informations, you will have to feed the system through vendor setups, as well as these taxing informations. You will have to set up the system through the taxation module, taxing module, and this bank informations and payment informations, term codes. You can set it up even in the AP setup module as well as in the banking module. So those prerequisites need to be met before to create your vendors, to register your vendors in the system. So let's start from the vendor creation in Sage application. Let's move to Sage application, and in here there is a separate module called accounts payable. So in this module, we are trying to register our vendors. So as I told you previously, in the AP setup, first of all, we'll have to set up our account sets. Account sets are pretty much mandatory. Account sets means within this account sets, we are trying to define our payable control accounts and our purchase discount accounts, our prepayment accounts, and our retainage accounts, and according to our currencies. So basically, for each and every account sets, there will be different accounts, and that will be depend on the accounting standards, as well as the accounting decisions which is taken by the organization. And for multi-currency purposes, there will be different account structure. For the local currency vendors, there will be different account structures. So as an example, you can see I have set up some account set codes in here. So basically, I'm not wasting my time on creating these things, but I'll go through these things because these will be needed to create your vendors. You can see payable controls, prepayments, retainage, and since this is a multi-currency account set, you can see the unrealized exchange gain and loss account has been defined. Rounding account has been defined for the rounding errors. So likewise. So basically, these things need to be set up first of all. And you can see the payment codes as well as the term codes, which payment codes such as the petty cash or the check, whatever the payment code or the payment method that you're using within your organization, you can set it up through here. You can see the payment types you require to select in here. Yeah, likewise. And then your term codes is requires. Some are using the 40, 30, 45, 60 term codes. So that can be defined in here. And these term codes are some you can use, you can link it with your discounts. If you have the discounts, you can link with them as well. So likewise, so these are the mandatory setups configuration that you requires before you get into the vendor master creation. So now we are moving to the vendor master. So in here you can see the vendor groups. So before I comes to this vendor master window, I have to show you the vendor groups as well, because this is the most important place. Because rather you going to each and every vendor and setting up a group, it is requires to set up all the groups in one window, and then you can select those vendor groups at the vendor master level. So then whatever the accounting informations, such as the accounting set as well as the term codes, payment codes, and the bank codes, all these details will be automatically fetching by the uh, accounting group, sorry, vendor group to the vendor master. So that facility has been provided. Anyway, the vendors and vendor masters, vendor transactions will be uh, maintaining through the vendor group. So that is the ultimate purpose of having this vendor group. So that is there, and this is the place where you have to define your vendor groups. First of all, most of the times vendor groups will be creating based on the currencies, based on the different management decisions. So that can be differ. So this is how it shows in my sample database. So you can see the group informations, invoicing informations, optional fields and statistics. Those details are coming once you do your transactions. So this group is maintaining all these, tracking and maintaining all these transactions too. And if you drill down these vendors into the these vendor groups into the vendors also tracking all those details. So I will show you how we can track those things later of this discussion. So let's move to our vendor creation. So vendors will be creating through this window, AP vendors window. So once I open this window, I will be able to see certain tabs. So first of all, as I told you, this star, you can see this star mark. So which means these are very much mandatory. So and you can't have duplicate IDs for two different vendors. So anyway, that will be always unique. So you'll have to use a unique vendor ID as well as a vendor number. So that's why I have mentioned in my slides that these two things are pretty much mandatory, as well as you can see my group code. So I have already selected and I have created my vendor and you can see I have mentioned my vendor number and I have given my vendor name and I have selected my group, vendor group. So once I selected this vendor group, it has already taken whatever the term codes, whatever the default bank codes and everything into the vendor master. So it has already facilitated and already, uh, you know, simplified my work. So then I don't have to go to each and tab and, feed this information. So likewise, like we told in here, vendor groups, vendor ID, vendor name, taxing information, and default bank codes. These things need to be still check, though we have already feed it through the vendor group. You have to still check these things because these are very much important when you're moving with these vendors. And you can see my group codes, and I have used whatever the easiest information. So these things will be getting into your place. So once you are familiar with these windows, so then later you can fine tune these information. So that's why these things are there. Anyway, you will require these address informations, or because when you're emailing or when you're posting these posting the payments and everything, you will be needed this information. So that is there. And you can see the contact tab. You will be able to feed the contact information of the vendor. And in the processing tab, you can see the accounting set, which we have defined in our accounting payable setup. So in there, you can see the payable control modules, payable control accounts. So that will be fetching through this account set, as well as the term code and bank codes, payment codes, all has been set up. And additionally, you can see the credit limit function also there. So that credit limit for vendors, actually, that also will be maintaining by Sage application to reduce your bulk work, actually. So reduce your workloads, because these credit limits will be leading you to block some invoicing. So then you don't have to go through your manual workings or the papers to find out that whether these vendors are having a pretty much of a higher outstanding. So you can settle your payments with the invoices. So then you can do your purchases. So that tracking facility has been provided through this credit limit information. So that is there. And others, such as this is a very important window, taxation. So taxing is coming through this tax group. So we will be having a different webinar session to show you how to manage your taxations and how to do your taxations and how to manage your taxings. So these things are there. And other optional fields such as your additional information, statistics, activities. So all these informations are coming once we have started doing the transactions with your vendor. So these things are there. And then I'll be moving to the transactions, such as the invoice bookings, as well as the settling invoice settlements, booking the payment, raising the payments, credit notes. Those things I'll be doing next. So let's move to that module. So basically, I have set up my vendor first of all. So then I'm trying to book an invoice through this vendor. Okay, so you have to book your invoices through AP transactions. So that AP transactions, inside that AP transactions, you will be able to see your invoice batch list, invoice entry, payment batch list, payment entry. So these 5 submodules windows will be helping us to book our invoices and settle the invoices. So these things are there. So this is the place where you book your invoices for your vendors. So especially when you're booking your invoices, make sure that you're raising your invoices to the correct batch date, as well as you're posting your invoices to the correct exact document date, as well as to your whatever the required date. So that facility is also provided in this invoice entry option. So I'm starting raising a invoice for my vendor. So yeah, so now I'm trying to copy this invoice ID and I'm going to paste it over here. So once I put tab, it will take the rest of information. So basically these informations came by default because since I have set up my accounting sets and everything. So in my document number, I'll be providing my invoice number, and I'll make sure that my document and posting dates has been set up in here. So then, okay, it says already exists, which means I have already an invoice number from this document. So I'm going to change my invoice number to something else. And make sure you're selecting the exact account in here. So I'll be selecting my and my invoice would be 1,000. So make sure I'm distributing it with my among my accounts. So I have set up it in here. So I'm gonna cross check my totals, and I have not put any taxes into here. So, and I'm putting some meaningful description later in this transactions. So I'm gonna add this thing. Okay. An invoice already, yes. So what it pop-ups me was like there is another invoice has been booked uh, for the same date. So that warning has come through my my accounts payable setup. So I have set up the warnings as well in there. So that's why it came all these things. So now I'm trying to save and post it. Yeah. So I have already booked my invoice. So I can see in my invoice batch list, and that has been entered and posted. So now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to settle the payments, and later I'll show you how we can track these outstanding invoices and how to settle by looking at those outstanding payments, those outstanding invoices, and how to settle them through payments. And but now without going to that report, I'm going to show you initially how to settle your invoices through the payment window. So I'll move to that part. Basically, when you're raising your payments, when you're settling your invoices, make sure that you're selecting the exact bank code, as well as make sure you have the exact currencies, because if you have not selected the exact currency, there will be discrepancies, as well as there will be some bank reconciliation issues as well. So in that case, make sure you are selecting the exact bank code as well as the payment codes. So those things need to be, uh, you know, feed to the system properly when you're raising a payment. So I have raised, and my vendor is having a USD currency, so always I requires to select my bank, uh, which is in USD. So since I'm going to do a USD payment, I'm always selecting my uh, payment and my bank, which is in USD currency. So I'm trying to do a payment. So basically, I have select my vendor, as well as I have select my bank, and I'm make sure that this bank is having the correct currency, because these details are fetching through your bank module, the bank master data, and make sure you are having the correct transaction tab. In here, you can see there are 4 types of transactions. This facility has been provided to do your payments, your prepayments, your credit note applications for your invoices, and to do a miscellaneous payment. These 4 facilities has been provided by the Sage to do this through one window. But this prepayment facility has been provided even in the invoice tab as well. So, so since I'm going to settle on payment, I'm using this transaction type as payment, and I'm cross-checking my accounting checks and other informations. All seems fine. Then what I'm doing is I want to match my invoice with a payment. So I am putting, and I'm just selecting this window. This is known as Go. So it will process and it will get you all the outstanding invoices to the screen. So then you can apply. So since I have booked my invoice, so I'm just trying to settle my payment, settle my invoice for this payment, and you can see my vendor amount has come as 1,000. So I'm gonna add it, and I can see I have the I have already created my payment entry. Now I'm trying to post it, but make sure that before you post it, anyway, you try to post it from here. It will ask you to print the check since I have used my payment code as check. So in that case, anyway, you will have to print your check first of all. So basically, this would be the best practice, but without clicking on this, though I clicked in here, it will open up you the check printing option. So anyway, I have to check. I have to print my check. So this control has been provided to whatever to minimize the human errors as well as because I know that most of the times some users are registering more than 1,000 invoices within the day. So in that case, when you're settling those invoices, and sometimes they could miss this print check option. So in that case, to reduce that errors, Sage has provided this information to here. So I'm trying to print this thing first of all. So basically, these check stocks are coming through your bank module. So basically, you will need to. That's what I told you that before you come to this vendor management. So anyway, you will have to set up your banks as well as your term codes, your payment codes, your banks, your checks, and everything need to be set up properly, as well as your taxing information. So then only this transaction goes smoothly. So I have printed my check. So I'll be confirming to the system that I got my check print properly. I got the proper check print. So I'm confirming that. Make sure if you skip this option, so system will not print the check properly. So I'm putting yes. So then you can see my check number has been defined, has been registered in this for this payment. So it has come here. So then system will ask, okay, now you have print the check. Now you can do your posting. So that facility has been provided, and this is so easy. So easily it can reduce the whatever the human error. So that option is there. So anyway, you can see the void check option also. So which means that somehow due to any reason, so if you have uh, uh, done a printing check in mistake, and so if you have, let's say, if you have provided the uh, you know incorrect check numbers, still you have the option of voiding the check, which means the canceling the check and reprint option. So that has been provided in here. So basically, I'm not going to do that thing now since I can do the posting properly, and I have already confirmed that I got the print successfully. So I'm going to post this payment. So now you got information that I have booked my invoice and I have settled the invoice. So now you can see whether you have settle your invoices properly within the Sage. So in order to track those information, so now we are going to this one, Edge Payable Report. So through these reports, we are trying to identify our outstanding invoices as well as our payments, whatever the payments that what we have done. So basically, I'm going to get my Edge Payables report first of all. So in here, you can see the reports are having different filters. So based on the due date or based on the document date, these aging buckets will be calculating the aging, and you can change your aging buckets at any given time. So if you want to track your overdue payments, overdue payables, and that also can be tracked based on your due date or your booked date or your document date. So that has been provided in here. So I'm gonna get this report for my vendor, just only for my vendor, and make sure I'm selecting this one also, because there could be certain reasons where you don't know that your vendor have a zero outstanding balance. But still, if the report is not showing those details, you may select this option. So then what it do is it will allow you to get whatever the information, whatever the transaction which is related to a vendor who is having a zero outstanding balance at the moment. So those things are here. And also you have option of selecting your on hold vendors, as well as we have the option for getting the transactions for all type of transactions, invoices, debit notes, credit notes, prepayments, adjustments, payments, likewise. And also you can get the apply details. So I'm using this one. I'm not, changing any of these cutoff dates or aging, since I have booked this invoice for today. So everything is coming in here. So cutoff date means you have the option of selecting, you are giving a date range to date, so information, whatever the data, whatever the transactions will be coming just only for that particular date. So cutoff date means you can give this cutoff date to any given time. And as well as you have the facility of changing your aging records. If you want to get the aging for more than 90, such as like 120, 360, something like that. So that also can be changed in here. So that options has been provided. So due to minimize the transaction weight and the transactions due to the limitations of transactions, I'm just only using this vendor, since I have booked an invoice and I have done a payment for only for this vendor. But without using one vendor, you have the option of selecting this and getting the report data for vendor groups wise also. So that option has been provided in here. So I'm like not going to use that option, but I'm going to use this report just only for my vendor. So I'm going to print it. Let's see what kind of details it provides you now. It has already calculated the age, so it will be giving you all the outstanding invoices with the payment, whatever the payment is. So you can see, as you can see, this is my invoice, and this invoice has been applied through this payment. You can see it here. So, and and there are some, see. So this type of details will be coming on my age payables report. It shows my vendor information, my basic vendor information, such as the vendor name and the vendor ID, with the document date as well as the applied date, which means the my invoice date, as well as if I have done any payment or any settlement, that particular date also it's showing. And this shows you the due dates. Okay, and then it will be able to get the aging based on these dues. So that option has been provided in here. So, and also you can see the transaction type, and invoice is showing through IN by IN prefix, PI as the prepayment option, and PY has the payment option. So invoice, and this is the payment that I have done. So that information will be showing with these applied details. So yeah, this is how the age payable report is showing you the results. And mind you that these reports can be customized at any given time. Since this is the standard report of this age, so I'll be showing these details, but these details also could be customized based on the business expectation. So that option is already there. So I'm not gonna customize this report. So then I think that these information will be enough for me to track my vendor transactions. So I'll be using this. Except this report, there's another report that you can get the same details. So that is vendor transaction. So basically, this vendor transactions report also system has provided you to get the required invoice, required vendor information. So I'm using this one also, and I'm like, I have given unlimited date. If not, I'm just like, giving my date as today, my end date as today. And I'll be selecting my vendor balance as zero since my vendor is having a zero balance. So I'm giving that one as well. And I'll be selecting all these details since I wanted to see what kind of payments or what are the outstanding payments and what kind of details has been applied. So I'm printing this. So basically you can get this report even into the vendor currency as well as to your currency. So that option has been provided by these reports. So let's see what kind of information it providing in this vendor transaction report. Okay, fetching the results. Yes, pretty much similar to the age payable reports, but it has some additional details also. So basically, you can see in this vendor transaction report, the vendor number as well as the vendor name and my document number, which means the transaction ID, as well as my transaction prefix with the document date and the due dates, as well as the applied amount and the document amount, the document total, uh, batch details and what kind of balance it has. Uh, if it is overdue, what kind of number of days are there? Uh, yeah, these are the applied details in here. So yeah, that option is there. So finally, this will be the balance. So you can see, I think this vendor transaction report also gives you a lot of information, such as the check information as well as the HDs. Uh, when you're comparing it with H. Weber's report, so I think these two reports gives you almost all information. Uh, so that's how this vendor transaction report gives you the data. Yeah. Okay, so now we are trying to do something useful. I think this option, this facility will reduce a lot of people's workload. So that is recurring payments. How to automate your recurring payments within the Sage application. So let's move to that. Basically, uh, when you're processing your recurring payments, these things you need to be, you know, have a look at before when it comes to the setting up your recurrence. First thing is scheduling. You have to have a schedule which requires to execute your recurring payables flow, as well as you need to make sure you're having a exact expiration dates as well as the starting dates, as well as your whatever the details. This details means your accounting details. So I'll be moving directly to your recurrent payables. So in here you can see these recurrent payables, such as let's say if you want to settle your book your internet bills, your phone call, phone bills, electricity, whatever the recurrent payments, even for the monthly, quarterly, annually, all these things, semi monthly, all these things you can set up and you can automate within the system. So this is the option where you can do these things. And yeah, you can see recurring payables. So I'll be setting up a new recurring payable code, and make sure before you do that, make sure that you're having a schedule. Schedule means now in common services, there will be a separate option called separate module called scheduling. So basically in here you can set up your all reminders as well as your scheduling codes. In these scheduling codes, you can set up your monthly, your weekly, your annually, whatever the scheduling code. So once you have feed your scheduling codes in here, you can use these scheduling codes for your automated flows in Sage application, such as for reminders as well as for your recurring payable flows. And as well as this could use for your emailing options within the Sage application also. So this facility has been provided. So in order to succeed with those flows, you will have to set up this information correctly in scheduling. So since my schedule is monthly schedule, so I'm going to do the payments monthly. So I'll be setting up my schedule as monthly, and I'll make sure that every month, first date of each and every month, this invoice should create. Okay, and I'm going to use it. And if you want, you can have the option of creating your own scheduling codes also. And but make sure you are using based on this recurring period. So and the frequency, giving the exact frequencies. So I'm using monthly code. So basically, I'm using my call charges, and I'll be using my vendor as the vendor what I have selected in here. I'll be taking the invoice ID, the vendor ID from here. And I'll be mentioning that call charges. And I'll be, I want to schedule this flow monthly. So I'll be selecting my schedule code as monthly. And I'll make sure that my invoice should create. Since I want to show you how it creates, I'll fix this start date as here, as today. But you can see that the next invoice date, since this monthly I have set up for every first day of the month, so it has already taken, and it has already mentioned here that my exact invoice date is first. But since I want to show you how this flows executes, I'll put my start date as here. But anyway, the start date means the date where this automate flow is starting. So even you can set it up into that particular date. So which means the 1st of 6th, if you set it up, so then system will automatically create the batch. So since I want to start it from today, I'll be putting it here. And here I'm using whatever my account that where this invoice amount should be split. So in that case, I'll be using my expense. Since I don't have a separate GL account, I'll be using this expense account, and I'm gonna. But I make sure that my currencies and everything is fine, because end of the day, the invoices should go with the exact currency, and I'll be adding this information. And now it has saved, and I have a recurring payables for my call charges. So now what I'm trying to do is, and also if I know my average payment amount, I can set it up it for 1,000, and I'm going to save that one as well. But if it differs, you can put it as 0. So that's not a problem. But if you know the average one, you can still define it and take a chance. No problem. And then I'm saving it. Now, I have not mentioned an expiration time, which means this recurring payable flow will not get expired at any given time. But let's say now, if you have a quarterly option now, after some times, if you want to inactive or expire this flow, you can set it up a specific date. So that option is there. So I'm not going to use that one. I'm using just only this no expiration time. Else you can use this inactive. Once you take it as inactive, system will realize that you are no longer using this call charges recurring payable flow. So I'm going to save it. Now, normally, once you set up this option, what will happen is once you logged into Sage application on 1st of June, I'm talking according to this invoice date. So what will happen is we'll give you a reminder. As a reminder, it will showing you that this has been created, and then once you go to your invoice batches, you can see that there will be a invoice batch stating that it as recurring. So I'll be showing you that one. Since I want to execute it today, what I'm doing is I'm clicking on this one. So it will ask you that it will be creating a invoice batch, or else you can, if you want to get it with some other batches, you can put and add into an existing batch, and you have to specify that particular batch number. I don't want to do that. So then I'll be processing this one, and I want to get a new paper batch. Okay, so it says processing has been completed. Now, if I go to invoice batch list, and I should be able to see my new recurring payable. Yes, I can see my new recurring payable. And once I open it, okay, great. I'll be able to see that my document number that has been taken with a recurring payables prefix. So even you can keep it as it is, or else you can change that one. That's no problem. And you can see this document type. Okay, this document date. So it has taken my invoice as 1st of June, which means since I have set up my invoice date as my next invoice date as 1st of June, so it has taken my posting date and my document date in according to that facility, that scheduling facility. So I'm changing it to 28 since I don't want to do any future transaction. And it says payment schedule will be recalculated when the document date is changed. Yes. You can see other all information has been automatically fetched by the vendor, and the document type also fetched by the recurring payable. And you can see even I don't have to use time to distribute it among, since I have already set up my accounts through my recurring payable flow. And before I post, I want to see the totals. Since I know my totals, I'm going to save it. And it says that there is another option since there are some other invoices to the same date. It's giving you the warnings, and then I'll be posting it. So GL creation, batch creation has been done. All the payment has been done. So then if I go to my transaction report, I should be able to see. I'm not mentioning my applied details now. I want to just only see my invoices. I'm removing all these things. I'm going to print it and see whether it gives me this invoice as an outstanding invoice. yes, I have an outstanding and total payables I requires to do a payment for this invoice, and the applied date, the document due date is this, so I require to do a uh, payment. So this is how it looks like. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is, so now we have followed, and we have got these details to different reports. Rather than going to the reports, I'm trying to get all these informations through one window. How? There is a one window that is known as vendor activity window. So basically that is a real good one, and that window has all the statistic informations, including your last invoice last invoice amount, your last payment amount, what is your current outstanding balance, and all the information on what are the aged documents and all your transaction and everything. So rather than going through the reports, I'll be using my vendor activity window. So this is the place. So I'm opening up this window, and I'll be able to see my vendor. I'll put in my vendor ID. So, okay, now this is showing in Canadian dollars. Okay, so if I change it into my vendor currency, it will be showing in USD dollars. So that facility is provided in here. So you can see my outstanding balance is 1,000. So this is the one I have booked as my call charges invoice. So this is the last invoice, and this is the last payment. This payment I have done for my previous invoice, and these things are showing in one window as your activities, your recent activities. As well as if you go to this aged window, you can see, rather than going into the aged payable reports, you can see that this aging has been calculated based on your due date. Even though if you have set it up for your document date, once you age it, you can get these details into your document date. So, and as well as it has a cutoff date, as well as your aging date, that also can be changed. So, and it gives you to the vendor currency. Even it has a functional currency also. So these options has been giving in here. So you don't have to use the reports to get these informations. Without using the reports, you can get these informations through this window, AP vendor activity window. And let's say if you want to really drill down to these informations, and you want to see what are the transactions that you have done for this vendor, you have an option of going to the transactions tab, and it will be having two different type of transactions. What are the pending transactions as well as the fully paid transaction? If I tick down this pending amounts, it has, let's say if I want to get into my vendor currency, it has the option of giving you the pending amount as well as the pending invoices or the outstanding invoices with the exact term codes, as well as the dates, as well as the applied amounts, current balance, and everything. It will showing you this window, as well as the batch. Even you are unable to find the batch, you can select on this, and you can open it up, and then it will be able to see the details, as well as if you want to go to the document, it will be getting you to the batch, invoice batch. This is my invoice batch. So we have the batch number and everything in here. So, and if you want to get the fully paid transactions, you have the option of this, and these are the invoices, and these are the payments that I have done. See, and it shows you all the document dates. If it has the exchange rate as well as the applied informations, and everything is there with the batch number. So you have full of transaction informations in here. So I believe that end of the day, you have two options: user reports, or else you can track these vendor activities even through this AP vendor activity window. So those two options are already provided by the system, even for the vendor currency as well as for the functional currency. So even you go to the payments, you can see there for different banks that gives you the the amounts in functional and in vendor currencies. So this payment transaction information is also there. So I believe these vendor activities will give you full of information what management requires for each and every vendor. But obviously this cannot take into the group wise. This will be drilling down to a single vendor. So that is the only uh, issue I guess in here. But except that issue, so I believe these vendor activity windows is giving you whatever the required informations if you want to get. So I believe these reports and activities will give you and will help you to define and point in all the processes. So that's what and that's how you're going to manage your vendors in a better way, in a productive way. So that's it about this session. So I'll open up house for any questions. Before I go to the questions, I will summarize what we have done today. So basically what we have done, the following. We have done the vendor creation. We have done the invoice bookings, as well as settling the outstanding invoices, as well as the important payable reports, the recurring payables, how we can use your recurring payables, as well as to track your vendor activities. So these things we have summarized. So I'll open up the house for questions now. So if you have any questions, you can raise it right now. Any questions? Right. Okay. If you have any questions, you can raise all to our mail, csu@zillion.com. So we'll be able to help you on all those queries. So I hope you've got a better understanding on how you can manage, how easily you can manage, how easily you can reduce your workload in your dealing day to day with these accounts payable models, especially when you're managing your vendors. So basically, we will meet once again with another productive session. So till then, goodbye and thanks for participating for this session and have a great day and hope you are safe. Thanks.